A new and highly significant battle over the Second Amendment has reached the steps of the Supreme Court, drawing national attention and sparking heated debate across the country. At the heart of this case is a crucial question. Can states ban firearms on private property by default, even if the property owner hasn't given explicit permission for such a ban? The outcome will determine whether private businesses, such as shopping malls, restaurants, and theaters, can automatically be considered gun-free zones, or if gun owners have the right to carry their firearms in these spaces unless told otherwise. This case raises the broader issue of whether Second Amendment rights extend to all places where the public is generally allowed to go, or if property owners and states can set stricter boundaries. The legal fight began after the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision, which expanded the right to carry firearms in public and led states like Hawaii to pass new laws restricting where guns can be carried. Now, the justices are being asked to clarify whether these state-level restrictions go too far, potentially infringing on the very rights that the Bruin decision was meant to protect. In response, the court has issued an emergency order that temporarily blocks Hawaii's law, allowing gun owners to carry firearms on private property unless there is a clear sign posted prohibiting them. The final decision from the Supreme Court will set a powerful national precedent, shaping how the Second Amendment is interpreted and enforced in private spaces for years to come, and impacting the daily lives of millions of Americans. The Supreme Court's attention was captured by Hawaii's Act 52, a sweeping law passed in the wake of the landmark Bruin decision. This law banned guns in a long list of so-called sensitive places, including government buildings, schools, and parks, but it went even further than most. Most controversially, Act 52 made it illegal to carry firearms on all private property by default, unless the owner specifically allowed it. This meant that, overnight, the vast majority of businesses and homes in Hawaii became off-limits to legal gun carriers. Gun owners and Second Amendment advocates quickly challenged the law in court, arguing that it effectively erased their right to carry for self-defense in most public places, and that it went far beyond what the Constitution allows. A federal judge initially sided with the gun owners, blocking the law, but the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that decision, arguing that property owners have always had the fundamental right to exclude firearms from their land if they choose. This sharp split between the lower courts created a legal deadlock, forcing the Supreme Court to step in and resolve the issue once and for all. At the heart of the case is a fundamental question. Does the Second Amendment's protection of the right to bear arms override a property owner's right to control what happens on their own land? The answer will determine whether states can make all private property gun-free zones by default, or if gun owners' rights must be respected everywhere the public is allowed to go, setting a precedent for the entire country. The stakes are incredibly high, with the outcome poised to reshape gun laws nationwide and influence how Americans balance individual rights with property rights for years to come. The Supreme Court now faces a pivotal clash between two deeply rooted American rights: the right to bear arms, protected by the Second Amendment, and the right of property owners to control and protect their own premises, a principle that has long been central to American law and culture. Gun advocates argue that self-defense rights are hollow if guns are banned in most public places, insisting that the ability to carry firearms is essential for personal safety and freedom. They believe property owners should be required to post clear signs if they wish to prohibit firearms, rather than defaulting to a ban. On the other hand, property owners and safety advocates counter that the right to exclude weapons from their land or buildings is fundamental to their sense of security and autonomy, and that default bans on firearms simply reinforce their authority to set the rules on their own property, ensuring peace of mind for residents and visitors alike. The justices must now apply the historical test from the landmark Bruin decision, asking whether there is a long-standing tradition of restricting guns on private property in American history. Both sides point to different moments in history, but their interpretations of past laws and customs often diverge, making the court's task even more complex. Ultimately, the court's reading of this tradition will set the balance between gun rights and property rights for years to come, shaping the legal landscape for future generations. The decision will determine not only where Americans can carry firearms, but also who truly gets to decide the rules: property owners, lawmakers, or the courts themselves. The Supreme Court's ruling will have sweeping effects on where guns are allowed in public life. If Hawaii's law is struck down, gun owners could carry in most businesses unless a sign says otherwise, expanding where firearms are permitted. Business owners would have to post clear signage to keep guns out, creating a patchwork of rules from one place to the next. If the law is upheld, states could make most private property gun-free by default, giving property owners more control and restricting public carry. Either way, the decision will redefine the practical limits of the Second Amendment in daily life. The outcome will set a new national standard for balancing gun rights and property rights. Millions of Americans will feel the impact in their communities, workplaces, and public spaces. In a separate case, the Supreme Court upheld a federal law barring people under domestic violence restraining orders from possessing guns. The decision, in United States v. Rahimi, was a major win for gun safety advocates and survivors of abuse. The court found that disarming those deemed dangerous fits within a historical tradition of protecting public safety. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that modern laws don't need an exact historical match, just a clear analogy to past regulations. The ruling is narrow. It applies only to those found by a court to be a credible threat after a hearing. It leaves open questions about other gun laws, ensuring the Second Amendment debate will continue. Still, the decision affirms that some gun restrictions are constitutional, even under the court's new history-focused test. Despite the Supreme Court's ruling, enforcement gaps in states like Texas undermine its impact. Texas lacks a statewide process to ensure abusers surrender their guns, leaving many under protective orders still armed. Survivors often bear the burden of enforcement, facing ongoing danger despite court orders. The Rahimi case itself shows the consequences. Rahimi kept his guns and committed violent acts, exposing the system's failures. Advocates have pushed for stronger laws, but Texas's pro-gun culture has blocked reforms. The result, a law on the books, but little real protection for those at risk. The gap between legal promise and practical safety remains dangerously wide. The Supreme Court's recent decisions mark a turning point in America's gun debate. These rulings will shape where guns can be carried, who can possess them, and how safe people feel in their daily lives. Survivors' stories highlight the urgent need for laws that are not just passed, but enforced. The court's approach shows it's not dismantling all gun regulations, but is skeptical of broad restrictions on public carry. The legal landscape will keep shifting as courts and lawmakers respond. Ultimately, these cases force a national conversation about balancing individual rights and collective safety. The fight over the Second Amendment is entering a new, more complex era,